Okay, I think we're ready to get started. Welcome everybody, and thank you all for coming out to our Coffee with a Curator this morning. We're finally able to get into our parking lot. We're very proud of that and very pleased to have all of you joining us on this apparently last cool break that we'll have before summer weather starts to hit us already. The Coffee with a Curator is something that we do on the first Wednesday of every month. We thank Cafe Gala for providing the refreshments, and we are very pleased that Hank has allowed us for this particular talk to actually bring our coffee into the theater, which is very nice. You will be very appreciative that we are in this space because some of what you're going to be seeing looks so much better in this room with this projector. So that is why we switched. I do want to tell you that next month we are very pleased to have Elise Trucks, a guest speaker who's going to be our Coffee with a Curator presenter. She actually teaches art history at the University of Tampa. She's going to be talking about Dali, Freud, and Sherlock Holmes. And we're not sure what that's going to shape up into, but it sounds very topical and fun. And so we're very pleased to have her join us. And also another talk that you definitely will want to try to come to on April 18th, which is going to be the Saturday of Easter weekend. We're going to have, I believe, at 11:30, a gentleman named Matt Werbicon, who is the chief archivist at the Warhol Museum. He's going to be speaking about Warhol's time capsule project. This is a project that he's been in charge of for the past 2 to 3 years. There are over 600 boxes that Warhol saved over a period of, I believe, 15 years, documenting everything that was given to him, no matter how ephemeral or transient, and yet they were all filled there. He said it's an amazing project. They are archiving everything, and it's taken them a very long time. But he said in particular he's going to focus on one very revealing box that they worked on recently that tells you a lot about Warhol's interactions with a number of people of interest. So he said it's going to be, it's a fascinating talk. He said everyone that he's presented it to has been amazed. And so with that, I want you to please join me in welcoming our director, Hank Hine, who's going to be talking about Warhol and the aspect of audience interactivity. So with that, welcome Hank Hine.
Thank you. Good morning. Yes, the topic of Warhol and interactivity, I think, was set in November. Before we had a chance to see the most interactive aspect of Warhol's work, which was the screen test. But Warhol's work itself proposes some really basic questions about art and the nature of the artist. And I want to look at some of those ideas first. Oops, sorry. Is everyone an artist? Warhol, of course, has said that everyone is famous for 15 minutes. And that provocative phrase makes you wonder, what are they famous for? Is it an engagement as a celebrity, as Warhol so coveted, or is it as an artist? Joseph Beuys had said, everyone is an artist. Now, the Philadelphia Museum put on an exhibition of Warhol and was quick then to explain that Beuys didn't really mean that everyone is an artist. He meant that everyone has a role to play. That is the kind of thing that begs your critical examination. Thales, the Greek philosopher, said, everything is water. Did he mean everything is water, or did he mean looking at everything as having an element of water would be productive? Beuys had a different approach, I think, to the concept of everyone being an artist than you might imagine from his statement. At his Documenta, the exhibition in 1982, he placed 7,000 pieces of stone that when you could get a little aerial view, you could see were an arrow pointing to a single tree that he planted. And he asked the residents of Kassel, Germany, to actually make the work of art, which would be the planting of 7,000 oaks. So you have to ask, is Boyes the artist or the individuals the artist? And is he sincere in saying that everyone is an artist? Tristan Tzara said that someday everyone could be a poet. There she is, Miley Cyrus. She was the award-winning, the YouTube award, or the MTV award for everyone being an artist. And here's some things I've pulled from the internet. Here's a free app that will make everyone an artist. And you just go to creativeblog.com app. Everyone can be an artist. There's also a commercial product called Psycho Paint, which is a part of that plea. The Psycho Paint developer says, you are a great artist, you just don't know it yet, because you never had the right tools to express yourself. So that introduces the idea of tools and technique. Stop worrying if you've got the talent to be an artist. Talent alone won't make you a great artist. Paintingforbeginners.com. What are some of the other views by non-commercial elements about this question, if everyone can be an artist? David Hockney said, what an artist is trying to do for people is bring them closer to something, because of course art is about sharing. You wouldn't be an artist if you didn't want to share your experience. So this idea of sharing, interactivity, communality between artist and audience is introduced by Hockney. Carl Andre said, the point of art is participation by the artist in his work, of making the artwork, by the observer of his work, by making the artwork a part of his consciousness. So observers are critical to the role of the artist in integrating the artwork into their minds and lives. Carl Andre. William Burroughs said, an artist is making something exist by observing it. So here he says that we don't even have to have our hands on it. We just observe it, and in that way we are artists. An artist is not paid for his labor, but for his vision. James McNeill Whistler. It's not even an act, it's a vision. And I think this one would be wonderful, and I think William Jeffett will agree with this one. Pictures deface walls more often than they decorate them. And that reintroduces the critical view that perhaps everyone is not an artist. But we'll see, and this is a question I will leave entirely up to you. Warhol said some wonderful things, as you know, and here are 3 things he said about art. It's the movies that have really been running things in America ever since they were invented. They show you what to do, how to do it, when to do it, how to feel about it, and how to look how you feel about it. That's a highly prescriptive view, and it doesn't leave us much freedom. It leaves the medium in control. I suppose I have a really loose interpretation of work because I think just being alive is so much work. It's something you don't always want to do. The machinery is always going, even when you sleep. And you will have seen his film of people sleeping, and it does look like work, and it's work for the audience as well. And this idea of the voyeuristic element of art, I'm the type who'd be happy not going anywhere as long as I was sure I knew exactly what was happening at the places I wasn't going to. So, 4,900 people since the 15th of January have taken the screen test. They take 3 minutes actually running, probably 10 minutes to set up, to choose the background, to enter your email address, to provide permission for the staging of these so that we could enjoy them today, as well as they who take them enjoy them on their own social site. So 4,900 people, 49,000 minutes of artistic intent. So I don't want these things to slip into the ether, and I think that very few of you had a chance to see anything other than your own if you took a screen test. But they're really remarkable, and Warhol was brilliant in using black and white film because it's very cinematic, and letting people direct themselves. As you recall from his approach, he would turn on his 16mm Bolex camera loaded with a 3-minute spool of plus X film, plus X being the less grainy of the two commercial black and white films available. And he would let it run. And a light, one single source of illumination was turned on, a bright bulb, and Warhol would leave the room, and the person was left to their own devices. If you can recall seeing Dali's own screen test upstairs, you'll remember his discomfiture. And those of you who have taken a screen test recall that it requires a lot of you. So I'm going to run a group of screen tests that I have made selections from. I want to tell you my methodology here. I think I gravitated towards selecting images because I could see just a thumbnail as I went through 4,900. I selected maybe 20 where the faces seemed to be closer to the camera, a little larger, a little more readable. That is the only prejudicial element in this. The rest are random, and of the 20 I reviewed, I've used each of them in this film. So these are not selected because they're remarkable, they stand out in any way. They're remarkable because human beings are remarkable, and it's incredible to watch these. So I invite you now to, I have to fool around with the computer to get these to come up exactly as they should. Oh, I wanted to ask a couple of questions. That wasn't my last slide. You know what a screen test is. It comes out of Hollywood, and it's an artifact of the technology, because when you turn, when someone is photographed, and I know this above all people, we don't look as good sometimes as we do in real life. And film producers and directors noticed that they really could not tell the star quality of someone by seeing them in person, and they needed to see them on film. So they invented the screen test, where an actor would stand in front of the camera, and that would be reviewed. That would be reviewed to see that wonderful transformation from real life to an artistic artifact. And what we look for is photogenicity, the photogenic. And you know, the photogenic, of course, means that you come alive, that the photo creates you. The term is sometimes misused. I once knew a young woman who claimed to have a photogenic memory, which I wondered about. In what way are these screen tests interactive? I think you'll see immediately that people get it. When they sit in front of that camera, they know they're supposed to look directly into the lens as though in a mirror. Not everyone does, but that's the basic concept. That interactivity, they are responding to the act of being filmed. They're also interactive in the sense that in our experience here, the screen test came at the end of the loop of experience of William Jeffert's show. So you saw paintings, you saw photographs, you saw screen prints, and then you saw his own films, a screen test and a film of couples kissing and film of a sleeper sleeping. So you're now inured to the concept of Warhol's use of film, and you're reacting to that as you sit down, particularly if you've been aware that you're using antiquated technology, this old Bolex camera that obviously harkens back to Warhol's factory days. I want you to consider what aspects of the medium, of the film medium, the screen test medium, seem to engage our viewers. Consider how the visitors are inventive and what their assumptions about the medium are. And then I would love to have a discussion with you on what we might conclude from this. So we'll take a look at the screen test now. So we're going to turn the lights down so that we can appreciate the quality of the film here. So I think we'll see that the medium is rather well understood. Here's Clarence, he's our first up. And this couple presents themselves with absolute sincerity about the medium and their role in it. Howard understands it, and that you can't wear a hat indoors. We have a lot of couples that presented themselves together like this. You really get their relationship. This woman, I think her name is Stephanie. We only know their first names from their email. So I think you'll notice that everyone has a strategy as they approach this. And of course, that's an element of approaching any art. Stell starts out with a definite strategy. Really quite an amazing repertoire of hand gestures for improvisation. But at a certain point, if the strategy isn't based in something really sound, you can lapse back into very silly habits. We see this in art quite a bit, people lapsing back into habits that may not be their own. She forgot about the gum. This is Gloria. Gloria has a strategy to see everything that's possible. And she may have taken a tour with Janice, I'm not sure. Often they will sit down and kind of think of the different repertoire of actions they might execute. This is very reasonable and sensible to do. So Elena comes in really close first. Fortunately, the lip gloss does not actually hit the lens. So then she sits back down, thinks about what else she might do. What else does this limited physical environment allow? Well, you can turn around in a circle on that stool. But you have to respect this medium, and let's think about some of the conventions of this medium as we watch some of the errors that obviously make these less than stellar screen tests. This is a silent medium. This is Jarvis. Jarvis thought there was an audience. Irina did not realize the stool was adjustable. So being available to your art, being ready to express and communicate is really important. And having one's eyes closed and listening to music from somewhere else is probably not the best strategy. Or being totally implacable. Notice, though, that sunglasses are not in themselves preclusion to communication. And you have to want to make art. You have to want to take a screen test. We certainly saw that people feel comfort in numbers in these, and many people, whoever they came with to the museum, was part of the art. See a strategy here. Look right, look left. Marvelous. They're just incredibly photogenic, aren't they? Don't people look marvelous in black and white like this? Now, all I saw is this one's called Carl's Screen Test. So present. Now we see immediately in film people referencing genres that they're familiar with in film and comfortable with. John. This, of course, is a horror genre. This is a classical reference to the Muses. And of course, people went right by the Warhol films, and so you would expect that there's a reference, as there is among artists, to all other art. Now, this was a particularly chaste kiss, and if you spend any time looking at those kisses of Warhol, they're not chaste, and they finally become first embarrassing, and then ultimately bizarre. And you wonder, why do people do that? Their mouths are against each other, and there doesn't seem to be any story to justify it or any narrative arc. Hair was very big in the self-presentation. So this is kind of a Nabokovian duo. So the Stanislavski method, you emote by feeling, not by gestures, but by creating some interior state. And this young lady, I think, does a wonderful job of that. And you'll see in a moment that that was acting, because she reveals her true self. Or perhaps her social self, I don't know. I think that's incredible. You can just really feel the intensity. No eyes visible. And something about art itself that brings people to the forefront, that reminds them of themselves and of the joy of being alive. These are the Hirschmans. And just being in front of a camera reminded them of how happy they were to be at the museum today and to be with one another. I think it's marvelous. The gaze of the viewer. Now, some of you know the writer John Berger. He pointed out in the Renaissance that females start looking from the canvas into the eyes of the viewer. And he equates that with the commissioning of art by the middle class, where the commissioner, the patron, wants to own not only the work, but everything about it, including access to the women portrayed. It's a very interesting feminist dialogue. But I do feel in looking at, when someone looks at you long, it usually requires something of us, doesn't it? We have to respond. But in this medium, you don't. There's a voyeurism, which is really interesting. So that's one convention. Art has a number of conventions. It's conventional, even though it may be radical. It's conventional. And what are its rules? I think that this little series of videos from the screen tests allows us to ponder some of this. And I would like to have the lights back on and ask you to raise any points of discussion that you think came to mind. Yes, Jody.
Warhol, when he had these screen tests, did he want you to be creative in front of the camera, or did he want you to just stare into the camera?
You know, I don't know the rules of the engagement, but we can assume from Warhol that he was totally impassive and would just say, "Oh, just look at the camera," and he'd walk away. You know, he was notably undirectorial. So, who hasn't answered that question? Is everyone an artist?
You are.
Saying you are an artist makes you an artist. Andrea?
Everyone's an artist and there's no sense of achievement. And if you don't have a sense of needing to achieve anything in your lifetime, then what are you doing?
Yes.
I think it's like the saying, all the world's a stage and the people merely players.
So we're all actors, and we act out our own destiny, and perhaps shape it, or is the script written elsewhere?
All players. I think we all can be artists, we all can be actors and actresses.
Any other thoughts? Yes, sir.
What other plans do you have to use these clips?
We had no plans, and I think one of the great theories of art is that art is shoring up against the loss that's inherent in life. And I think the reason I put these together was shoring up these beautiful efforts against loss, shoring them up for some kind of social experience. They were just going into the ether. And eventually, you know, the server would be altered and they would disappear. Yes?
I think that this photo booths, you know, that people get in a photo booth and they love to take other people in a photo booth with them, but it's like a fraction of a second, you know, the picture is taken. I think this is very difficult to even spend 30 seconds on lens.
Yeah. How many have taken screen tests? About a third of you. Great. It's great fun. And while the exhibit is up, I encourage you to go do one. Eric Crispin, do not do any more. I had to skip over those.
How many did he do?
I landed on 4. I don't know. But I was determined not to have this anything to do with personalities that we know. So to me, all these people were strangers, and I think probably to you, unless you recognize them. Nathan?
But you had a slide that brought up the idea of being that out to conceptually, not just your art, but whatever your craft might be.
I think great artists are totally available to their craft. I think a lot of artists, you know, when we find the art insufficient, it may be that they're not sufficiently available to the impulses, to the technology, not sufficiently inured in it. But the question you raise is really interesting because if the definition of an artist is one who makes himself available to his art, I would offer that the definition of a good human being is a person who makes himself available to his friends, to his fellow citizens, to his family. So then again, we would be equating human qualities with the qualities of an artist. So I don't have an answer to that circularity, but availability and presence is certainly something that we admire and to which we all aspire. Yes, Margaret?
I think one thing that's connected to availability is time. Element of time. There was a quote in there, I think it was Sarah who said that we would have enough leisure so everyone could be a poet. I think the element of time is very important because the time that you can devote to the art makes a difference. And in these screen tests, people had 3 minutes, long time that sit there and do something, but you're given that time, that 3 minutes to do something. I think in that sense, if everyone were given the time to be an artist, they could be an artist, but not everybody chooses to do that. So I think you have to think of the element of time. It's like writing. People will always say, you know, when authors will always say they hate it when someone comes up and says, I have a book in me. Well, but they haven't written it. So the fact is they may have a book in them, but
Right.
you have to take the time to make yourself available to write the book.
Right.
So I do think the element of time has to be added to the definition of what an art is.
I saw a interesting statistic that 78% of American adults think they ought to write a book about their lives.
Speaking of time, I think it's evident today that so much art can be created in an instant. The artist may have given it a lot of thought prior to that. What he did was choose that item, but spent a lot of time thinking about it prior to that. So I think, I have this conversation a lot with a lot of other artists, and anytime you start applying rules to what goes into the creation of a work of art, it immediately falls apart because art, just back over art history, keeps evolving and expanding to the point now where just about anything can be art, if we say so.
There's that great sense of permission. Do you give yourself that permission as an artist?
Personally,
Yes.
to be an artist,
No, as an artist, do you give yourself permission to allow any impulse, any
Yes.
materials?
yeah, gotten to that point.
That sense of permission is pervasive in contemporary art. Opposed to Wordsworth's idea that many things should not be on the wall.
So then you get into taste.
Yes, yes.
But I think it's interesting that Renoir, the great artist that he was, never considered himself an artist. He said he was that, you know, when he was he never gave himself permission. Artist, yet he was a great artist, but he was humble and he didn't want to I don't know why he wouldn't consider himself an artist. Some artists feel that way, like they'll say, I paint. They hesitate to say that they're an artist. So that's almost the extreme of having everyone be.
Right. But then there's the strategic and political aspect to that too. I think Warhol, did that with some guile. He would assume that posture. I have nothing to say. He would tell interviewers, "You answer the question. I don't know." But that's a little naughty. Maybe Renoir was a little naughty too, as he took it to the bank.
Yes.
Greg.
I agree with Steve on that. Most artists that I've worked with in my life say that the physical thing is art exists in their mind before it exists on canvas or a piece of stone. That's the vehicle to other mind, the other mind. And so I would contend that with the art, we really focus on that.
Well, I would point out that, as you guys both know, you're in harmony with Dali's ideas about art too, that the art resides in the idea. And Dali was not unique in that. Of course, it's a prevailing idea. Even Picasso had that idea, that as physical and sensual as his work is, that the idea was the art, not the... Can't see, yes?
I was recently walking over down Central here and saw art is free. In that sense, on the barriers for anybody to be an artist. On the other hand, all the work in the galleries and the shows that's for sale art anymore, and they're not artists. So it's been kind of agitating me since I've seen it. You're kind of milling it over, thinking about it, so that was an interesting, profound statement.
It is, it's a very profound statement. And one can experience it freely, which I think is one of the reasons for such an interest in art. It's very democratic. The homeless person, when they see a work of art, can have the same experience that a millionaire can have. It's free in that sense. It's free because it's open to the human soul. Well,
Clearly, there's a mental cost to pondering it over time.
well, I think it's a great topic. I want you to ask. I want to ask you to join with me in just applauding the anonymous artists who created these experiences, and at the same time to thank in our minds Warhol and William Jeffett for putting on that show that creates this wonderful experience, which I think we've salvaged just a little bit of. So, thank you.